Hey everyone, I'm Jim, and I'm joined, of course, by Alex and Brad, and welcome to the Crucible Cast. So today, we've got a couple of topics to talk about. We're going to start off by breaking down some of our Vault Tour recaps, and then we're going to do some rules questions, and then lastly, we're going to finish with a special announcement.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I like the sound of that.
Right, and don't forget you can always jump to whichever portion of the recording that you want to by checking any of the timestamps below. So, I think to kick it off though, we had a couple of Vault Tours recently that we want to talk about.
More than a couple, we had 4 Vault Tours.
Wow.
2 in Indianapolis, 2 in Krakow. We filmed this is Monday, for those who aren't aware, we filmed this obviously ahead of time. They literally just ended yesterday. So we fresh off the press, we have some fresh results from the double Vault Tour in Krakow in Poland. But before we do that, let's have a quick recap of what happened in Indianapolis. Brad, we were both there.
Small event called Gen Con, right?
Small event called Gen Con. You may have heard of it.
A couple people and their close friends.
It's a small gathering. But yeah, I've got the winning decks here. So what I wanted to do is, Brad, get your thoughts on some of the decks here and what you think really contributed to their success. So starting with the winning deck from Indianapolis, and this was Hunter of the Eloquent Strand. Logos Mars Shadows.
This is from our sealed event.
This is a sealed event.
Yes.
Yeah, the sealed at Gen Con. So obviously Age of Ascension. What stands out to you here? I know what stands out to me, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Well, we had Logos Mars and Shadows, some of the most powerful houses in Age of Ascension. Right off the bat, of course, in Logos I see Archimedes, I see some Pokes, I see Neutron Shark. So I'm seeing a lot of great cards that are just good in general. But I also see a lot of cards that allow you to archive, giving a lot of flexibility to this deck. Popping over to the Mars, I see double Carpet Flotsam, a lot of board control, and just generally a lot of really great cards that I want to see in Mars in general. Mother Gun is there, really like the Plague Master as well. You just get a lot of board control out of that house. And then to finish it off, we have Shadows, which always great, one of the most popular house. Miasma, Ronnie Wristclocks, Umbra, Yancey Gang, these really great, efficient cards. You're just kind of getting a little bit of a greatest hits of these 3 houses here, which I'm sure really, really helped this deck's success rate.
And really, I think we get the vibe that Age of Ascension powered up Mars, for want of a better term. You really started to see some more consistency out of them. This one doesn't have the generosity or key abduction links that we've seen in some other decks. But 2 Beam Bucklers as well, which followed up from Mother Gun can be quite useful to really take over the board.
Beam Buckler is fantastic for that. So understandable how powerful this deck was throughout sealed play.
And there's a couple of cards here I want to mention. Ronnie Wristclocks, we love that guy. Very good. He 3 power, I believe.
Ronnie Wristclocks, ha-cha-cha.
There's a lot of there are a lot of good 3 power creatures, particularly on Untamed, but Shadow's getting 3 power is an interesting place to be in this game.
Well, and especially with the Umbra in the deck, which is really, really essential in Age of Ascension play, sealed, with all those artifacts, some Grump Buggies out there, really letting you take control of those.
Yeah, and the other thing, Whistling Darts there, worth noting as well as Nerve Blast, just really great spot damage removal.
Exactly.
Okay, and if we quickly jump ahead now to the deck that won the Archon Vault Tour Gen Con. Brad, I think you actually commentated on the final.
Yeah, I did. And so I got to see the Snappy Pariah, which ended up winning firsthand. And wow, what a really cool deck. I hadn't quite seen the core combo of this deck. It was clearly the superior of the 2 decks in the finals, won all 3 games. And we saw the combination between Potion of Invulnerability and Poison Wave in particular just wreak havoc on the opponent. It was a great, fantastic combo, really letting the player use it to lock down the board. In addition, they had Tolas as well. So they're wiping their opponent's board down and benefiting from every single creature that's going down while keeping their board state intact.
It was great to see Tolas being used to such an effect. I mean, one of my favorite decks, people know I mention it all the time, Troll Sanchez has Tolas. And I reckon 75% plus of the time I'm just discarding it because I don't think I can get the full benefit out of it. My deck just doesn't want to do that. But this deck's like, great, we'll take that. That's perfect.
Slam it down all the time. Like, again, just so many great cards. In addition, we have 2 Doorsteps to Heaven in Sanctum. These were critical throughout the Vault Tour, and especially in the final match. Setting their opponent up, making them not want to push too hard, especially with their great Shadow Suite. just a pile of urchins they were fighting through, and a lot of scaling they were having to deal with. They did a great job. They were slower deck than the opponent. However, it has so much more ability to control the board and control the game state that if the opponent's deck couldn't accelerate to get in front of it, it was going to win every game just by momentum.
Well, and then you talk about the control that Dis brought in as well. Control the Weak, Restaurungus, Three Fates, Gateway to Dis, Charette, Ember Imp. Just a good Dis control suite there.
Fantastic. Yeah. And again, other hits and shadows. You got the bait and switch. You've got 2 Dodgers, 2 Shadow Selves.
What a Poison Waves.
What a fantastic deck.
Consistency. I like seeing a lot of 2-ofs in a deck. For me, you can plan more around a 2-of in your deck list.
Absolutely.
Because you can expect to draw it more often. And that's always helpful.
Well, and it was really, really great to see just the synergy between Sanctum and Shadow. Sanctum really adding a protective element, well, things have gone wrong button, whereas the Shadows let the deck be really proactive. It was really, really cool.
Brilliant. So jump ahead to last weekend.
Yes.
We took this over. We have the decks that won the Vault Tours in Krakow, Poland. Starting with the one that won sealed, Shortzard, Spawn of Isip Space. I'm really bad at these.
You're close.
I think I was pretty close. Once again, some Logos and Shadows and sealed, this time supported by Dis instead of Mars. So we're seeing still in Age of Ascension, Shadows doing well. Logos, I think we all agreed now, is a great support house. Very rarely the winner of the deck, but adding the support. And we're seeing things that we also saw in the sealed winning deck at Gen Con, and that's to say that we have a Ronnie Wrist Clocks, we have Whistling Darts, we have Throwing Stars with a very similar effect. What are your thoughts about this deck?
Well, I think we got to look at that logo suite. We had Archimedes, great and powerful card. 2 Helper Bots.
Love that guy.
Really, really, really very helpful card. And we see a Time Traveler, Help from Future Self with that. Neutron Shark, fantastic Logos in this sealed. Along with that Memory Chip, a personal favorite card of mine. And then we shift over to the Shadows. Double Bren the Fanatic, paired up with double Life for Life.
So we talked about consistency and how good it is, but this is just even better.
Oh my goodness, it is so good, especially considering that this deck has a Too Much to Protect, which means you can rock out Bren Fanatic, let your opponent think they're safe in a space where it's like, well, okay, I'm going to forge a key, and they don't want to keep pushing over that because their opponent knows they have that, and they're like, well, I don't want to get hit by Too Much to Protect. Then you come back, Life for a Life, your own, Brend, after reaping, you steal a whole bunch of amber. It's a great play and lets you come out of nowhere and just really surprise your opponent when they thought they were in a good spot.
And we haven't even mentioned, maybe you did mention it, I missed it, but our second favorite redhead in the Crucible, Time Traveler. Popping up from time to time. We love that guy.
Oh, he's great.
Super value plays.
And then, honestly, the Dis in this list is no slouch. It is all. We have the Lash of Broken Dreams, Onyx Knight, Unlocked Gateway, 2 Amber Imps. Like, really, really great deck.
Yeah, again, filled with consistency throughout, like you said, like just a lot of 2-ofs in all of the houses.
Yeah, and 2 Pip-Pips. Oh, we love Pip-Pip. Really, I mean, talking about Dis's control, Logos helping there with Pip-Pip as well, like forcing your friend to be careful about how they reap.
Just a lot of really great plays in here.
Brilliant. And then we go on to the deck that won the Archon Vault Tour. And what's really interesting here is the pilot, the guy who won, owned both decks in the final. He was playing his buddy. They're both from Greece. And I won't talk much about that. I head to our Organized Play Facebook page where Matt interviewed them and talked about how he decided which deck out of the 2 he played. That's fantastic. I'll leave that stand as it is. Definitely check that out. But let's have a look at the deck. That redhead's back again. Time Traveler's there.
We have the same house setup.
Same house setup, yep, as the one that won the sealed. So Dis, Logos, Shadows. And again, consistency here. I mean, look, we've got double Type Mechanic, double Special Delivery. We've got double Speed Sigil. And while some people think it's funny to have 2 of the same artifact, actually rock them out. It's thinning your deck out. And also you can plan around it better.
Well, exactly. You have that consistency. You might as well plan with the idea that either early on or at some point in the mid-game, you're going to be converting into a Speed Sigil setup. And having that foreknowledge and knowing when it's going to come gives you a lot of advantage. Right. Lets you put your board and get you in a state where you're like, I'm really going to be able to just, this is a great Speed Sigil card. This is a great Speed Sigil card. Sets you up. We see, a great logo suite. Time Traveler coming out again. Double Titan Mechanic. library access as well, library available, phase shift, Mother, like greatest hits out of Logos. Just missing Quixo the Adventurer, really.
Yeah, I have to say, he's not actually appeared in any of these.
It's okay. It's okay.
Maybe he's just had his moment. But yeah, and then talking about the doubles again, the disc, double shuler.
Man.
Again, being able to plan around those sort of things.
Great disc control suite.
Yeah.
No, wonderful decks all, and what an exciting quadruple of Vault Tours. It's been really, really great to see.
It's been great to be able to run back-to-back Vault Tours and cram them in, for want of a better word. But we do run the scheduling in such a way that we can do this. It's part of what we plan and make sure that it's not an exhaustive day, so it doesn't run you into 10 o'clock at night just playing in one main event, which means we don't run out of time, and it is possible to take 4 solid days of Vault Tour, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So let's jump to look at the house representation.
Yeah.
Nothing too surprising here. We'll start with the Arc. We're just going to cover the Archon events of house representation. There's more choice going into it. Gives us a bit more information. So over at Indianapolis, we have, no surprise, Shadows being the most common house on day one. 158 of the 203 decks running Shadows.
Again, their consistency with stealing has been great. Players really love that. It's one of the most efficient ways to go about KeyForge. And so we're going to see those strong Shadows numbers coming out of these sets.
Absolutely. And then Disc coming in second. We know Disc Control is a thing still. And then we actually have Logos and Untamed sharing the third spot. I think that's the Untamed speed decks we know about, those really aggressive Amber Generation decks. And personally, I think Logos scores up here because it is still a very good supporting house in both Call of the Archon and Age of Ascension. Yeah, it's a lot of supporting cards.
Yeah, agreed.
And no real surprise that Brobnar and Mars bring up the bottom there. Only 50 Brobnar decks and 53 Mars decks. But to me, the surprise is when you look at the conversion to day 2, only 2 decks with Mars in made it through to the second day. Mars is admittedly needs Mars, right? Mars needs Mars is kind of the thing we agree on. But to see only 2 decks make it to day 2 seems a little bit bad. And you look at the conversion rate, and it's through the floor. It is minus 65% of its conversion rate.
Sure.
The biggest drop I think we've seen on any of them that we've measured. What do you think the reasoning is behind that?
Well, again, Mars can get a really great roll, or it can get a really disastrous roll. And it can be really variable. And so I think that's just a product of seeing that, especially in Call of the Archons. You get a lot of that variability. And sometimes it works out for you and sometimes it doesn't. And at a really high competitive level, your opponent's going to find every opportunity to make sure it doesn't work out for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the highest conversion rate out of the houses, incidentally, was Logos. So despite being the third most represented house, it still pushed itself up to the second most represented house in the day 2 and had a really solid conversion rate of 39%. Possibly we're seeing a little bit of influence of Age of Ascension there, although the turnout for Age of Ascension in Poland wasn't particularly high. I think it was at 22% or something like that.
Yeah. Well, the really interesting part about it, I think, is it kind of shows how Logos does fly under the radar just a little bit. You don't perceive it as being as powerful as it is because it's focused on fixing the way you move through your deck. And I think that surprises people sometimes at how good it can be. And I think it's very easy to underestimate how good your Logos is.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. And if we jump ahead to Krakow and the Archon events, we're on the side of our pages here. Once again, Shadows followed by Dis, followed by Logos and Untamed. Pretty much the same representation, although Sanctum joining Mars as the least played house on day 1. Jump ahead with only 36 decks out of the approximately 150. Jump ahead to day 2. And we see Mars shine. So out of the 36 decks that played, 6 of them made it through. It had the highest conversion rate, 53%.
Yeah.
But we also know that a higher conversion rate of Age of Ascension made it through. That's to say that a quarter of the field on day 2 was Age of Ascension, 25%, which was much higher than Indy. Maybe that's the Mars effect.
I have to say I think it probably is. You have more Mars representation in general in the pool. Obviously you're getting even some strong Mars decks from Call of the Archons in that mix, but you're also seeing those more consistent Mars decks from Age of Ascension. That's part of what we tried to do in Age of Ascension, is to pull apart those a little bit different. So I think that's to be expected, and really interesting to see how the European meta and the American meta are pulling apart. in different ways.
To talk a little bit about that, some of you guys might have seen me put this up on Facebook, but you look at I managed to pull apart some stats out of the results and looked at set representation versus how many Call of the Archons, how many Age of Ascension. At Gen Con, it was just over 78% Call of the Archon on day one, just under 22% Age of Ascension. Flip over to Krakow, and while the numbers aren't drastically different, just under 77 and just over 23% here and there, the actual day two conversion rate, like I said earlier, 25% versus 9. So the conversion rate was huge. In fact, technically, if you do some stats work on it, you actually see that Age of Ascension outperformed Call of the Archon in Poland. We saw those Mars decks do well. We saw Age of Ascension deck in the final.
Yeah.
So what do you think talking about this?
You have to take into account just the rates that players are bringing in decks. And so, obviously, there's still preference for Call of the Archons through many of the player base, but I think our numbers are starting to show that Age of Ascension has a lot of merit to it as well.
Yeah, more decks being open. I mean, these are only a few weeks apart, right? But more decks have been opened.
Exactly, and I think that's a really big part of it. As Age of Ascension continues along its path before our next release, we've seen more and more decks be opened. That's more and more possibilities to get really, really powerful decks.
More grunt buggies, more generosity.
It's also time for players to go out and find those decks, to search through, be trading decks, and finding new avenues to acquire them and new combos. I mean, that's one of the great parts of KeyForge, is you're always discovering new interactions between cards. And I think there's still a lot of untapped potential in Age of Ascension. And so I challenge you guys out there to go out there, try out your Age of Ascension decks. If you're sitting with them at home and you haven't given them a shot yet, I really, really would suggest. I continually am surprised by some of the combos I'm finding.
Don't rely on just reading those the ID cards. You have to play with the cards. I mean, there's plenty of ways to do that. Go out, play, go to your local store, get some games in, get some reps in. Just maybe surprise yourself with some decks that you've got that may have been sat there still in their wrapper. You've looked at it and gone, don't read that. Maybe they're better than you think. Give them a try. Both houses. I mean, both sets, not just...
Seriously, they are. I really don't feel like you can get a full sense of how good a deck is until you've played it 3-4 times.
Oh, absolutely.
At least.
Great.
Yeah, and I've got a couple of decks still sealed that I might have to crack into after this. Some good info on there.
Definitely.
And speaking of combos, I know we've got a couple of rule questions that we're going to answer, but I do want to make sure that be aware that we are going to be doing a rules reference early September, I believe.
Yes,
is that correct?
We'll be updating the rules in early September, hoping for the first week or two.
Me and Brad have been hinting about that for a while. It's coming. It's coming. It is literally at the point now where it's being localized and getting ready to roll out. So we're really excited.
Off my plate, and of course, as I've been saying, it has a timing chart. It has a timing chart, I swear.
And to be honest, that's not even the biggest part about it.
Oh, no.
There's bits in there that I'm super happy to read, things to find. The timing chart's great, but there's other bits.
The timing chart has been an essential thing, and we're really happy to put it in. I think it's going to put a lot of power in players' hands in order to interpret their own rules questions. And I think that was one of the big things the rules document was missing, and I think it's part of what's caused a lot of confusion. And so we're really happy to put it in. Can't wait for you guys to see it.
Yeah, but before we move on with that, we want to, of course, we've got a couple of rules questions we can answer before that, mostly revolving around the Shadow of Dis card.
Yes. Shadow of Dis, card from Age of Ascension, play until your next turn. Enemy creatures' text boxes are considered blank except for traits. Okay,
so the first question I have, so my opponent, let's say Alex, plays Shadow of Dis on their last turn.
Yep.
Boom. So I'm going to try to play Silvertooth on my turn. Does it still get to come in ready?
Yeah, so Silvertooth has the text, enters play ready, and in fact it will come into play ready. Shadow of Dis only affects creatures that are already in play, excuse me. And since Silvertooth's text causes it to enter play already ready, it isn't in play, or it doesn't get a chance to be blanked before it's actually in play, so it enters play ready as a blank creature.
Okay, yep, that makes sense. No, that totally makes sense. Okay, same kind of concept then. I think I know the answer, but I would like to hear your response. Let's say same thing, Shadow of Dis played by Alex, and I play a bunch of cards, and now I want to play Bumblebird, which of course has the alpha keyword. Can I still play that?
You cannot. In the same way you could get a ready Silvertooth, the Bumblebird still has alpha in your hand, alpha functions as a play restriction, and since you've already violated the element of that restriction that would allow you to play the card by doing, playing a card, discarding a card, or using a card, you're not going to be able to even get to the point where you are trying to play the card, because the alpha will prevent you.
Okay. Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And I assume then that, so if I have something like Dusk Witch, and I play that, which has the Omega effect, of course, does that get to, does that affect trigger of Omega? Now I have to stop playing cards?
Well, see, now the interesting part about this, and this is a distinction between Alpha and Omega. Alpha is a play restriction. Omega is a trigger when it's put into play. So if I play the Dusk Witch, it's blank when it comes into play. It doesn't have Omega. And so Omega doesn't trigger. And so you could continue to play cards after it. However, of course, the hope with Dusk Witch would be that you get to play it and benefit from its effect right away. Which in this case you're not going to be able to, because it will be blank.
It's just a blank creature, right? It may as well have you may as well play it last anyway in that turn, right? It's not going to make any difference.
Yeah, there's no difference there. Yeah, no, that totally makes sense.
But you will be able to play it and not worry about the Omega.
Okay, perfect. That all makes sense. So then lastly, before we go, we are wrapping up, but before we go, I think Alex has something special he wants to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I can talk a little bit about it.
You're all this and you're only going to go a little bit? Oh, come on.
I'm starving over here.
I can give you a date.
All right, that's a start.
September 26th.
FFG Live, exclusive announcement, some cool news coming. Richard Garfield himself is going to be joining us on FFG Live.
Fantastic.
Very excited about that.
September 26th.
Not going to want to miss this.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I know we're playing it up a little bit, but seriously.
September 26th.
Oh my goodness. It's so exciting. I still can't even believe it myself. You guys have to tune in.
People know I've been hinting and dropping hints about this. Stuff's coming. I've done some interviews with some players and things. And the announcement is so exciting. But I'm so anxious at the same time. A lot of work has gone into getting us ready for this, and to be able to sit down with Richard on the mic.
September 26th.
September 26th.
Be there.
We are going to be finally able to share this with everyone, and it's so cool.
That is fantastic. Well, I know that I'm super excited to check that out. I will be there on
September 26th.
to FFG Live to make sure that I get a chance to watch that. And I think that kind of wraps us up for the rest of the show. I want to thank you all for joining us. And as always, make sure to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, which of course links are below for that. And don't forget to send any of your rules questions to kfrules@fantasyflightgames.com. All of this will be in the links in the description below, along with those time links, so you can jump to wherever you need. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys.